this morning. So a few years ago, we had a keynote at PyConAU in Brisbane where he talked about the amazing new digital curriculum that was going to be revolutionise but mostly modernise the teaching of computing to school kids. He wasn't too positive about how that was going at the time, but we have had a huge growth in efforts to improve kids' digital literacy. And one of the people at the forefront of that is Pip Cleaves. Please welcome Pip to talk about those future coders.
Thank you. Just wait for that to all come through. Great. Hey, I'm Pip Cleaves. Today, I want to talk to you about not so much what James Curran spoke to you about, Dr. James, when he was here with you in Brisbane, but the impact of what he spoke to you about and what that means to you guys as an industry, what that means to all our budding coders in the universe. So just to let you know a little bit about me, I'm the National Education Manager at Code Club Australia, and usually I stand in front of a room of educators. Today there's one friendly face in the audience, Stu, thanks very much. I work on the education side. Code Club Australia is a not-for-profit organisation that's funded by the Telstra Foundation predominantly, and we help teachers to code. We don't go in and give them the injections and their immunisations to tick the box to say that they're doing coding in their school, but we give teachers the strategies and we give students the resources so that they can be awesome coders in your companies. And that's what drives us. We're about social impact. We're not about making profit and making things work. We tend to hang out in the hashtag #GetKidsCoding, so you'll find us there. And I'm Pip Cleaves on Twitter. So today what I want to talk to you about is who are our users, what's our landscape at the moment, like what's actually happening, what's the languages that we work with the most, what are some of the gadgets and physical computing that we're coming up with, and what can you guys do as an industry to help your future. So the first thing I want to dispel is this concept of digital natives. We all hear about this, it gets thrown through media every now and then, and I actually abhor this term. I don't believe that anyone is born knowing how to do technology. We all learn technology as we go along. We have to be introduced to it, and we have to be given the tools so that we can then fly. It's the speed of that flying that is different. And a little while ago, I came across this beautiful piece in the TED Ideas, and it speaks about the 3 types of users in the young audience that we have around us at the moment. So when I walk into my classroom or when I walk into university, because I lecture in digital technologies, then I'm going to have 3 types of users in front of me, and I have to work with those guys. Now, the first of those, I'm just going to talk about those 3 to set the scene. The first of these guys are the orphans. And the orphans are given the devices by mums and dads, and they're left to struggle on their own. They're given the iPads to keep them quiet during dinner. They're given the devices, and they find their way to social media pretty quickly. They find their way to survive and consume and suck the life out of the internet and troll and do it. They're not producers on the internet. They don't give back. They just keep sucking. And they're the orphans, and we need to be thinking about those guys. We then have the exiles. And the exiles are the guys that mums and dads are going, no, I don't want them touching this technology until they're teenagers. So they pull it away from them completely. These guys don't have a narrative to talk with their peers about. They're not gamers. They're not building these computational thinking skills. They're not problem solvers. They're scared of technology when they step in front of it. We have to work with them. They're in our classroom, and we have to be aware of them. They're sitting next to the orphans. Now, unfortunately, when these guys jump on board, they go crazy. They got no skills. They got no socialisation. They don't know what to do. So they're pretty scary when they're online. And then our last crew, and I'd say this is you guys, and every single child that you work with is an heir. These are the guys whose parents are working with them. They're specifically teaching them. So I have 3 children myself. My 16-year-old unfortunately had the year that I banned filters on Instagram, and she had to use Photoshop. So now she knows how to do these things. So I'm hoping that, yeah. She hated me for a little while, but now she's doing graphic design and she loves it because she was introduced and shown opportunity. So the heirs are the ones that we're working with from an early age. Every child should be an heir. Every student from kindergarten, this is what the new technologies curriculum is telling us, every student from kindergarten should be an heir. So, we have to work with parents, right? That's the scary bit. Second thing we're going to so let's keep in mind our orphans, our heirs and our exiles. If you, by the way, I'm sharing this deck at the end of the thing so you can jump on board, but that is from a blog, TED Ideas, and if I remember the name, it's Alex Samuels maybe. So let's then move on to, we've got our users, let's move on to the landscape. So Dr. James spoke about this new curriculum that was coming, Dr. Curran. Let's actually talk about what it is. So the Australian National Curriculum Technologies Syllabus is the official language that you guys can forget about the minute you walk out of here. Totally cool with that. And it's about creating preferred futures through design thinking and technology solutions. It's not just about coding. And this is one of the most exciting things, I think, as a teacher who's been doing design thinking in my classroom for a while. This is absolutely fantastic. So our national curriculum, it says that from F to 8, so kindergarten, 4-year-olds through to 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, must learn coding, must have a continuum of coding, must learn a whole heap of things I'm going to talk about in a second. And then year 9 and 10, if you're thinking you're going to head into that space, the elective is for you. So all of a sudden, we have students up to the age of 14 doing some pretty hardcore things. So the curriculum itself is split into 2 separate areas. We have, bear with me, our digital technologies, which is looking at digital systems. So this isn't just, this is the concept that to do stuff, we have to plug things into a computer. Now, bear with me if I get really simple, okay? On the education side, not the techie side. So we have to plug things into a computer. A tablet's not going to do everything. And if we think about our orphans, that's really important for them to understand that if I want to grab a digital microscope and I want to really zoom into something, then I've got to plug something in somewhere. Yeah? And it's about knowing that if I want to take really good photos, I'm going to use a proper camera for it. We don't do everything on one device. So that's the digital systems. The representation of data. So from kindergarten, we're looking at how do I collect data? How do I analyse data? What can I do with it in order to form some decisions moving forward? This is very powerful come year 9 and 10. And then creating digital solutions is, of course, that focus around coding, process and production skills. Hello, we're finally looking at project management. And we're looking at that from a very young age. So the nuts and bolts of this area, the digital technologies, we're looking at data, we're looking at systems, we're looking at coding, and we're looking at project management. And the Foundation for Young Australians put out a beautiful report about a week ago about the skills we need in 2030. And they really, all of these just get sucked into that beautifully. So I'm really excited by this. Now, I need to put a little bit of a cursor on this, that New South Wales is not implementing at this stage. All other states are implementing strongly. New South Wales is in a draft format through our NESA association. We will get there, but not quite there at the moment. So just know if you are New South Wales based, it's a slightly different discussion. Now, the digital technologies running parallel to that inside this big curriculum is the design and technology space. And this is a space where we help kids to solve actual problems. And we start moving into things like sustainable food production. We start moving into machinery production and engineering concepts. So this side takes a kind of the coding kind of sits off to the side, and we're looking at solving problems, using design thinking to solve problems, pulling aside that project management to work through, so that we're helping students to think that to help them believe that they can make an impact on the future through using their technology to do that. That's the big concept that we're working with. And you'll see these technologies contexts down the bottom, I love. Engineering principles and systems. So they're going to look at machines and the robotics that pops into here, right? Food and fibre production. So this has been labelled as something that we need to work with. Imagine students coming out of school with technology and a knowledge in this space. That's where we innovate. And that's why we move forward as a nation. Food specialisations, materials and technology specialisations. So it's a very interesting area to think that we're moving in those context areas, design thinking, knowledge and understanding, and processes and production skills. They all come together, running parallel to our technologies to give students a really good understanding of how they can make an impact and how they can be future-focused workplace people. But what does this actually mean at the various levels? So let's have a little bit of a look at. So in kindergarten, what does all that stuff mean? What do they actually do? What are the outcomes that we have to know? So I'm just going to run through what students have to do at each level. So by the age of year 2, so that's like 8, students should be able to choose the right system to suit the task at hand. So they should be able to know, if I want to take a photo, I've got to go get a camera. If I want to print a piece of paper, I've got to plug in a printer. Or not necessarily plug it in, but I'll use a printer for that. So they start that understanding. Next step, they're going to use robotic toys to navigate a map. Yeah? Very basic algorithms where we're going to say, walk forward 3, turn right, walk forward 1, turn left, walk forward 2. So we're starting to do things that are like, let's turn, you know the Hungry Hungry Caterpillar book? Yeah? Turn that into a robotic map on the ground. Put the fruit in order and the students have to create the map to go through that. Now you and I and everyone else knows this works beautifully for English as well, right? Literacy, being able to create procedures and the flow of language and be able to explain, first we're going to go here and then I'm going to turn right. So we start to see this computational thinking coming into the regular classroom, coming into science, English, maths, move forward 3 steps, turn right, that sort of stuff. And then, again, creating simple algorithms. For example, identifying steps in a process or controlling robotic devices. Now, nowhere in here do we need keyboards. Nowhere in here are we actually talking about being on devices. We got these great little things, I'll show you in a minute, called Bbots. Anyone seen a Bbot? Little yellow ladybird things that are about this big, and they've got arrows on the top of them, and they press the arrows for the number of squares forward, and then they press play, and it does it. It's really cute. So from an early age, we can do these robotics and we don't need devices for everything. That's up until year 2. So they're our little mini coders and they're very, very happy, excitable people. In year 3 and 4, I like to call them our Energizer bunnies. So anyone got a year 3 or 4 student around them? 8, 9-year-old, yeah. These guys are really inquisitive, right? They want to learn stuff. They want to get in, yeah. So with our Energizer bunnies, as I like to call them, these guys are all about introducing coding to them, starting to get them hands on a keyboard, starting to get them thinking about things they can do. So they're going to be following algorithms and creating branching. So they're going to start moving into if and then. We're going to work on project management. Hello, a 7-year-old thinking, righto, I've been given a pretty big problem to solve. The first thing I need to do is go and do some research. And then I'm going to try and think of a whole heap of solutions. And then I'm going to test out a few. And then I'm going to pick the best one. And then I'm going to share it with my community. So all of a sudden, of course, the teachers are going to scaffold this like nothing else. There's going to be lots of steps and lots of, you know, do this, do this, do this. But they're starting to understand. Big problem? This is what I do. They're going to use things like digital microscopes. One of my best buddies, shout out to Mitch, his kids come flying in from recess every day and they've got like insects. And they like pull the legs off the insect and they chuck it under the digital microscope. And they like get in there and they check it out. And they all come in on the weekends with all their bugs to put under the microscope. And he's got one of those ones that just like USB plugs into his computer and they just hone in and then they talk about it and they get really deep into the science part of it. And I think that's really cool because the students are seeing technology is not just this thing, but lots of stuff coming together to give me understanding. Using robotic toys again to navigate a map, we've been there, we're doing it again. Designing solutions using visual coding languages. So this is the beginning of the Scratches of the world, of the Blockleys, of the, I like to call them, and again, remember me, I'm kind of simple in this space, it's the cake mix boxes of coding, yeah? So I like to say to people I explain it, so our visual coding is our cake mix that we buy from the supermarket, and our Python coding of the world is the way that Grandma used to bake a cake, and everything from base and everything from scratch. So that's the way I describe to teachers who are all very new to this space, right? All very, very new, so we have to bring them in nice and gently. So the visual coding of the world, so Scratch is a big one, of course. Block coding, there's 50 million of those out there. I'll show a few in a minute. Kind of the main area, yeah? And, of course, the Minecrafts of the world. And then they're going to be collecting, manipulating and interpreting data. So by the end of Year 4, students should know really well how to set up a survey, how to understand how to collect that data, to look at creating graphs from that data and starting to pull information out of it. And I think that's really important working in your space, yeah, data's big, yeah, to begin to understand that early on is important. Year 5 and 6 is kind of similar in the coding space. The way I've got it in my head is that by the end of Year 6, a student, if you said, come on, let's jump into Scratch, they'll go, no, I am so over Scratch. I am not doing it again. I've got this visual coding done. Go away. Leave me alone. I want to do the next bit. So that, to me, is our benchmark for the end of primary school. So we're also talking UX design to them. So we have to talk it to educators as well. And we have to work in that space and use the language that you guys use. We have to talk prototyping. We have to do prototyping. More and more schools are creating little makerspace zones where teachers will take their students when they're doing some rapid prototyping, when they're thinking about this space. Collaborative project management. So we're moving from students doing project management on their own and being scaffolded to working in a team. So last year, I'm actually a Japanese teacher is my base teaching area. And I was in the classroom for 2 years, checking that my headspace around this technology is what's actually real. And I'm like, right guys, we're going to 3D print some Pokemons, and then you're going to create a stop motion animation with a Pokemon battle, and we're going to choose which is the best Pokemon, and we're going to share it at assembly. Oh, you're going to do that in Japanese. Okay, no props. And I thought that was pretty weak in terms of a hook to get them in there, but they did. They really got in there. Now, that's not coding, but the collaborative project management was woeful. I'm sitting back and I'm watching them. I've given them all the tools they need. I've given them scaffolds for their planning, and they're working together a week out from deadline. Miss, so-and-so's got the file at home. I'm like, and? You didn't plan for the cloud? You don't have access to any cloud? Well, yeah, but, well, come on. So they really don't know how to work well together. They don't know how to use tools to work well together. We have to help them do that. We have to help them build those skills, because you guys know how important they are, right? They should be able to create really good games and quizzes and interactive stories and animations, and they should be really confident in this space. For me, the last one's a little bit of a beautiful bugbear, something that I'm very passionate about, is that students should be able to use Productivity Suite software really well. They should know, and don't laugh at me, how to insert an image into a OneNote file without having to look it up on YouTube. Yeah? It's not necessarily the case. We have to give them, we have to expose them and teach them how to use the Productivity Suite stuff so that they can focus on the deeper technology later on, right? It's not about word processing. That's just a skill. That's just something in life. But we have to teach them. We're not digital natives. No one is. Remember back to those 3 types. So that's Year 6, and so that's up to Year 6, right? So by the end of primary school, this is where we're at. Let's move on to high school. So in high school, we're looking at general purpose programming. So we're looking at the HTMLs and the Pythons and the space that scares me considerably. We're looking at UX and accessibility in design. Accessibility, imagine kids thinking about accessibility when they're designing products. For their future, we know that's a really exciting space to be part of. Increasingly complex algorithms that allow data to be manipulated automatically. This is Year 7 and 8. This is still mandatory. So our sloth-like, 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds that are just, getting through life and chilling, yeah. All of a sudden, They're in general purpose programming with automatic data manipulation. They're decomposing problems, they're creating interactive apps and animations and solutions, and they're acquiring and analysing and evaluating data. They should be quite strong in this space by now. So an example project of a year 7 and 8 is that they might create a game for their peers that teaches them about some aspect of life. So I might get my Japanese students to create a game to teach each other how to learn Japanese. And they would have to do that in a general purpose programming. Because remember, we don't talk Scratch in year 7. It's going to take a few years to get there, I think. I think if we were to chuck this on year 7 now, we'd lose them. There'd be like anarchy in the classroom. We've got to bring them up to this and get them ready for it. So that's the sort of stuff we're looking at. So these guys are kind of starting to get really bored with life. We have to, bored with school life. We have to make it interesting. Then we get to year 9 and 10. Now, I'll be really honest and say this probably doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm sure it makes a lot of sense to you guys. So this is an example project of an elective year 9 and 10. So the big box at the top is the project, and the little skinny bits underneath it are the outcomes that they're going to be marked on. So they're going to have to be able to do these things. So students are going to use a markup language and style sheets to design and create a prototype data-driven web app to solve an identified problem, for example, an app to locate the best surfing spots in Queensland. I think that's pretty exciting. So if you guys can do that by the age of 16, because that's what they'll be when they finish this, that's pretty cool, right? Yeah? And these guys then come out and do work experience, or they go to uni and they come and sit as interns in your offices. That's pretty helpful, yeah? That they can do these things. I think so. They need to. In order to do that, they have to analyse client needs. It's very sophisticated language, right? It's very much project brief language as I see it. Designing complex algorithms with modular functions, evaluating the data-driven web app solution against specified criteria to ensure it meets stakeholder needs. That's cool. Establishing protocols for the sustainability of knowledge bases, and planning and managing using software development cycle theories. So compared to what they do now, this is next level. Compared to what is mandatory now for a student in year 9 and 10 doing software development and design in New South Wales, this is complete next level. In order to do this, we need from kindergarten to get them ready for it. And it may not be every student in the school that wants to do these things, but we have to give every student the opportunity to do these things. And that's what drives me. So if we look at all those projects and what I was speaking about, to me, what it all really means is that we should be learning through projects, not learning through computer science, not learning through step-by-step tick boxes and move through some sort of online interface, but we should be giving them big chunky projects that exist in the world today, hooking them in with you guys as mentors in those projects in schools, in order that they think, wow, I'm actually doing something real. I'm not just clicking the buttons on a keyboard here. I'm doing something that actually makes an impact on the community around me. And that community may be just something in their classroom. They might make an app for making the role in their classroom. Or it may be something bigger, solving an Australian issue and taking part in some sort of a bigger project. So I think it's really important that we need to remember this as a society. We're not learning the old way, tick next level, tick next level. We're now learning through projects and we're learning through doing stuff. And I call to you guys to do that. Now, I want to show you an example of what this looks like. So I had a student last year. Oh, this is going to look really bad. We give it a go, yeah? So he entered a competition called the ACER Video Game Challenge, Australian College of Educational Research, I think it is. Anyway, and he won. So a student in year 8 made this Pixel Tanks game using Python. If someone really knows how to help me out here, see this here? I can't make it like fit to the screen properly because like a 13-year-old. So let me just press play here and see how we go, see how much of the screen we can see. Oh, we're not going to see a huge amount. Okay. That's not good. Let's go 1. There we go. Okay, 1, 2. That one goes there. That one goes that one, that one, that one, and that one. Yeah, so now I need to, there's a little button down the bottom. It's not going to let me do it. Oh, it's such a shame. Maybe I'll sort something out a little bit later. Okay, let's just leave it there for that. It's what? I want to show you pixel tanks. Give me a second, maybe at the end I can sort it, yeah? Sorry about that. And if anyone out there knows how to solve that for me while I'm standing up here with my presentation brain on, that'd be great. All right, so back to projects. So that boy, he was one of those quiet kids in the classroom. I'm sure you all know them or you've been one. Sat up the back. I didn't really know that he had the skills. And he came to school one day and he goes, "Hey, miss, I won." I'm like, "What'd you win, Max?" And he goes, "I won that ACER thing you told me to do." And I went, "What do you mean you won the ACER thing I told you to do?" Well, my dad and I, we worked through it, and like I submitted my portfolio and everything. And I went, "Oh, the portfolio has it?" And he went, "Yeah, I'll show you." And he did this whole portfolio with this whole process he went through to create the game. And he won. And I just think that is awesome. And he was so engaged after that. And we need to do more of that. This is that actual challenge. If you do know any people in your community, as you can see, they're in that dev stage at the moment. So if you do know anyone doing this competition, lend them your knowledge, lend them your expertise and help them through with it. It's just the ACER Video STEM or Australian STEM video game chat. Just make a video game, yeah? Yeah. Basically, that's what it's all about. So I think that's the world we need to be working in. Now, I've been alluding to, but let's look at the different languages that students learn and the continuum of coding languages that we go through. So, and I'm going to go quick here. So let's, kindergarten year 2, year 3. Scratch Junior is an app on iPads, which is really cool. You don't need any language for this. It's just a drag and drop thing. You don't need to, or you can type stuff in, but you don't need to. It's a really nice one to use. I recommend if you've got some young peoples around, chuck the app on and do it. Blockly, we've got Scratch from year 3 to 4, 5 to 6. Now Scratch 3 will be coming out soon, which is a nice HTML5 that'll work on iPads, and for all those schools that have iPads out there, they'll be able to use them for this sort of stuff. Swift is an increasingly popular, Swift Playgrounds app is increasingly popular in schools at the moment. It's an iOS app, and it is starting to bring in physical computing inside that environment, which makes it nice. So some of the different websites that we use around the place is the MakeCode. Actually, the MakeCode website, I like MakeCode because, see here this Minecraft, let me just quickly show you this. So you've got, it's block coding. Microbit is actually probably my favourite little physical computing tool at the moment. They're absolutely fantastic and really cool and really cheap and really accessible for schools. Thank you. This, has anyone seen this before? No? Okay. So, yeah, you've seen it. So Minecraft now has an education edition, which means as a teacher, when I open, and it works through Office 365 environment, so your kids just need Office 365, they log in with that, I log in with that, a server automatically starts. When I shut down my computer, the server shuts down. Perfect, right, for a teacher, yeah? Really cool. I can freeze kids and do all that sort of stuff, do Hickory really quickly. But I can also do coding. So this is block coding. So if I choose my run option here and I've turned on the little, there's a code connector extension, then my code will run in Minecraft. So all of a sudden my block code is moving into that. Well, for some students that are moving more into that space, we've got the JavaScript option here. So we can flip them over, start introducing JavaScript, start showing them that it's not just about cake mixes, guys. There's actually, you know, a base to this, and show them that world. But if kids are about blocks, they're about blocks. Who cares? It's about coding, right? So that's a really cool space to be in. I very, very, very like. So it's kind of taking it to the next level. So that MakeCode space, keep an eye on that if you want some cool activities to do at home. And then, of course, you've got the sort of girl spin, the MakeCode area, your Tinker space, and code.org, which has some nice activities. Scratch Junior and Codable, which is the app on the right-hand side. So from the top, Scratch on the top left. Codable, so vary that first level of maps, basic algorithms, move forward 3, turn right. Down to Lightbot, which is down on the bottom left-hand side. I'm stuck at like level 5. Yeah. Don't tell too many people that. And then the bottom one down there is called the foos. I don't know about the foos is cool. It's getting people along. Grok Learning also have some great activities. But remember, at this stage, it's about introduction. Scratch is a fantastic space. I really enjoy Scratch and I like the openness of it. And then our Swift Playgrounds, which is available on iOS at the moment. When we head into our older years, we can start playing in HTML and Python for our extension kids at the end of primary school, yeah? And then 7 and 8, 9 and 10. For those really eager ones, we can head into Ruby. So some of these are things that teachers use, yeah? We have Mozilla Thimble's got a really nice environment for kids to get used to using HTML, got some little projects there that are really cool. Then we've got Penji, which is a nice Python introduction, works students through that, and our Getting Started with Minecraft Pi. So Code Club is a Raspberry Pi organisation, or our parent company. So I'm actually heading over to Raspberry Pi at the end of this month in England. I'm very excited, sorry. We've got some activities around getting started with Minecraft Pi. I'll show you through our Code Club stuff very quickly in a second. So these projects we have here have all the steps every student needs to get through and get started with creating their own Minecraft on their little Raspberry Pis. And Raspberry Pis are great for schools because we all know how cheap they are, and they're really good at, I'll just quickly head into the next space and explain why I think that in a second. So at Code Club, we cover all these code languages as well. So we have about 120 hours of resources that are open source and there for anyone in the world to use without any sort of sign-in or firewall that's necessary. So these are our coding languages we focus on. So we have Scratch, and we say, let's do that for about 6 months, and then let's head into HTML. And our projects look a little bit like this. So whenever you go to our project page, so let's head into, say, Mystery Letter for an HTML project. You open the project, and we have what the end result is going to be, and then a step-by-step of what you need to do to get started. So a teacher can feel really confident that everything a student needs is there, that they can work with each other to do that. And for the teacher, what's really cool is that the fully worked solution is there for them as well. So if they don't have the full confidence, then they can copy across, remix across the solution. We use Trinket as our editor for Python and HTML, and they can remix that, and then they can open it up and just say, kids, well, you know, you guys problem solve together. You work together to work out the solution to here. What's different between yours and this one? Working through. So these resources, let me just go back. They're based, we have a group in the UK, and we have a GitHub environment, and anyone can create and add to these spaces, which is really exciting. So in terms of our Python activities, we have here, these are, you can see quickly here, starting off with an About Me page, Papers, Rock, Scissors game, a turtle race, we're heading into a team chooser, secret messages, modern art, an RPG game. So straight away, we're heading into really cool projects. I'm just going to open that in a second. So Code Club, we're there to help teachers. I run training for teachers to get them moving. That's the coding. Then I always say it's important to take the coding and do something with it. So these are the little B-bots I was talking about down in the bottom left-hand side. These are the gadgets. So in the early age, the gadgets are beautiful and they're shiny, shiny. And, you know, they're nice and consumer-focused, very block coding focused. So B-bot is one of those. Dash is a lovely, that's the three, sort of the blue one. And Dash, you can code using a block coding system, or you can just drive it around like the Sphero, like a remote car, to get kind of used to that controlling, and then start doing blocks so it works its way around. The Lego We Do is very popular, as is the Ozobot. You can draw the code, and then, who's seen the Ozobot before? They're like these little things, they're about this big, right? If you can buy one for friends, do it. And you get pens, like any sort of textile, doesn't matter what sort. And depending on your colour combination of red, green and blue, it does different things. So you're kind of drawing the code, right? And then it has a whole online interface, so it's got a block coding system. You block code, right? And then you hold the Ozobot onto the screen and press download, and it flashes like a crazy person and puts the code onto the Ozobot, and then you put it on the table and it does it. So it's really cool. And they're like, you know, you can get, they're quite cheap to purchase as well. The little wood block, this is actually, it's in the media at the moment. This is called a Cubetto, and it is for early learners. So let's say pre-kindergarten even. And what you do with the block is you put the codes on the block, on the square board, and you put the Cubetto over the top, and he rolls over the top of it and remembers that code. Then you put him on the ground and he does the code. And down the bottom of that board, can you see, maybe not, the last row is actually a loop. So they learn looping while they're playing with this stuff. And they're really cool. If you've got babies around you, get one of them for them, yeah? They're really cool. Moving into the gadgets for the, let's say 5 and 6 upwards. So 3 and 4, lots of coding. 5 and 6, building that coding and adding more gadgets onto it. Let's start hanging out with the makers of the world. Let's start playing with the microbits. They're really cool. The MBots, which is a nice, I like the MBot. These have still got block coding background, or often they have a Python option that you can work with. The Raspberry Pis, and lately I've fallen a little bit in love with the PyConAU area, which is a really nice space. 5, 10, 10, 5, good, excellent. Well, I'm going really fast then, beautiful. So there's some of the gadgets that we're starting to use in school. So I would think that by high school, that we're really comfortable with coding different gadgets. Raspberry Pi is something that's maybe the higher level. I don't believe it's every child, but I believe there are some students that are going through that elective strand who should be moving in this space. So what do I need you guys then to do? If we're working on this, we want our students to be solving the problems in the world that we all live in, and we're giving them the skills from kindergarten to get there, then I believe, and the teachers, we haven't lived in this space. As I've said 50 times, I'm not one of you guys. I'm an educator person who has a real passion in this space. Then we need you to help us in schools to make it all happen. And the ways you can do that is at Code Club, first one, we get volunteers to match with schools. So for schools doing a Code Club in the afternoons, and we try and get a volunteer to come and help that teacher. Or if libraries, look at the libraries around you, they often have code clubs or coder dojos. Volunteer your time to help them. Mentor some of the future coders. Reach out to a school and see if they're doing year 9 and 10 elective courses, can you mentor those kids in some way? You know, you can do this via online chatting and stuff. You don't have to be there all the time, but to connect yourselves to those kids who are sitting in that square classroom with square lines of desks, not really realising what the world's like out there, they need to connect with you guys. The other thing we need you to do is to make some really fun projects for us. When we're going from the Scratches and the Scratch Juniors and the block coding, there's so many cool bling projects there, right? And they all look really fun and they're really colourful and they're really kind of, yeah, cool. We need some nice, cool Python projects too to keep that continuum. So if you can make some of those and share those with your community and share them, that's a great thing that you can do to help teachers to keep that engagement level happening. And then donate some resources, donate the microbits, donate things to schools to help the teachers to do this, or to clubs, or to libraries, or to the universe around you. Use your social impact area within your company and that need to work in that volunteer space. So Telstra, for example, on Monday, I'm going back to train some Telstra guys. Telstra donate, they have a day a year, I think, sorry if I get this wrong, where people do volunteer day and they get paid for it within the company's setup, social impact time area. So we often have Telstra volunteers come to our events and stands and stuff, which is really fun. And this may be a good place, this may be a good thing for you to whet your appetite on. We are currently at Code Club on a mission to break a world record. Last year we had 10,000 kids coding in one day, and this year we've already got 20,000 students, kids, registered to do our Moon Hack Challenge. And our Moon Hack Challenge it's a global challenge this year. And we've got 3 projects there. We've got a Scratch Junior, a Scratch and a Python project. and we've got other ideas for people just to get kids coding, to show them, to give them a little bit of an open up. So you may like to offer to help at a school or run a Moonhack session with kids in your company after school that day, or do something, jump in there and tell people about our Moonhack challenge that we have at the moment. I'm really excited by it. I would love to think that we get up to a really high level, but I don't know if we will. So the last thing I ask you to do is to help us with our Code Club resources. In our Python area, we have, as I mentioned, we have a GitHub environment, and we're always after people to help us build our resources. So if you are interested, just jump onto Code Club and follow the trail from there, or contact me on Twitter and I can help you with that. So I think as we're getting towards the end, there might be some questions around for people if you would like to ask me any questions about coding. So I'm calling you guys to come and help us teachers to get your future workforce ready to walk into your companies and do good stuff.
We do have a few minutes if you have a question. I have a question.
Uh-oh.
I don't need a microphone. There's a microphone just over here if you could, or there's one here as well, if you could find the microphone. I'm just curious how much you've talked to folks in, say, the sciences who do a lot of data work about how this is all feeding into them.
Yeah, so we've all heard the word STEM a lot at the moment. My belief is actually that every subject should have technology in it, and that science should be really focusing in this space. So in a way, the new digital technologies curriculum mandates that science is hooked in there as well, and it opens up an opportunity to focus in that space. So teachers, just in general, it's part of the narrative, yeah.
Cool.
So one of the things that I noticed a couple times in that presentation is the increasing number of, I guess, mega companies that I haven't seen before. Is that something that we should be worried about them trying to do what I guess one in particular has done with IT education in the past?
I know this is being recorded. I believe it, and I know this is a cliche, but it takes a village to raise a child. So if everybody, so we have our big companies and they're doing good things, but we also need the small companies to follow in from there and show opportunity. So we don't just think it's one or two options, that students know. And I think the new technologies curriculum, the fact that in years 7 and 8, it's mandatory for every student in Australia in a few years to learn a base coding language, that's really good, right? That's going to keep us thinking outside just a narrow field of options. Does that make sense? I think it's in the right space moving forward to keep people broad and keep people looking around the place.
Thank you for the talk. So it seems like there's potential here to reach beyond just the traditional startup tech industry and push project management skills that have come out of that area into large traditional firms. What do you see as being critical to actually getting that on-ramp connected so that the new generation kind of is armed with these skills and doesn't just crash headlong into people who are 50 and think that waterfall is still a good way of doing things and that there's no place for new technology?
I think confidence from young children, so that the young people from the workplace, so they come to you guys and they've got this confidence that they know what to do when they're doing a project, or they know that data is important, or they've got some skills under their belt. So then they're ready to kind of fight the gates in front of them, if that makes sense. If they're, I know what I'm doing, and they've got not too much, of course, that's a struggle too, right? But they know, and they've got confidence to say, no, we know we can do this. We're right, and not just go, yeah, I don't know anything, I better do it the way that it's always been done, yeah? So I think that's really important for us. No worries.
Thanks very much for that. And I'm really interested to see all these different devices and different opportunities, ways of getting kids interested from a really young age. But the thing that struck me was it felt like a lot of the things, the ideas you're talking about and the ways that kids would get interested in apply a lot to your heirs that you talked about.
Yes.
And I guess what I'm interested in is what's your experience with the orphans and the exiles getting interested? Because if they're not interested, then they fall behind.
Absolutely.
How do you sort of catch that?
So I actually think, and going back to those bling sites, going back to those major sites, they're going to pull the orphans and the exiles in because they're set up for instant success. They're set up to look good. They're set up to connect with the social space. So if we're thinking of those orphans and exiles who come late, they jump on board, they consume things, then by getting into the different big platforms that have got their block codes, let's talk about the Made with Code site, for example. I've seen girls that have no confidence whatsoever, that are exiles, but they want to see what this is about, come in and they make stuff within 10 minutes and they're like, wow, I can do this. And that builds that intrinsic motivation to move forward. And it gives them a little bit of an extrinsic, tick the box and keep moving forward. So I think they're really important. While the heirs, they do that in 2 seconds and move on to the next thing, right? And they're already into the physical computing and they're making the projects. Then these guys are building their confidence through those larger platforms that are out there. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Right, that's about all the time we have. So thank you again,
No,
Pip.
thank you
and
very
here's
much.
a couple of little gifts from us.
Oh, thank you.
To say thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
All the speakers get this, but that's just for
Thank you. Thank you.